Emmylu Blakney Lawrence was born on April 25, 1936 to Clement Earl Blakney and Lucy Wolfer Blakney in Tigard, Oregon at 15085 Southwest 100th Avenue on the family farm and in the family house that her father built in 1923. She died on Friday, April 2nd, 2021, age 84, 23 days short of her 85th birthday after a battle with liver and stomach cancer. She was married to Thomas Rodney Lawrence for 62 years as of January 12, 2021. She was the mother of two children, James Nathan, born in Pasadena, California on December 5, 1959, and Rowena Ann, born in Linwood, Washington on December 18, 1961. She had 6 grandchildren and is survived by 5 grandchildren. They include Nathan and Sandy's children, Lucy Rose Lawrence Wilson, Aaron Nathaniel Lawrence, Michaela Joy Lawrence Asbury, and Jared Nuriel Lawrence. Rowena's children include Jamie Suzanne McKee and Alexander Leitzler, who was born to Rowena in 1992 and died in 2011. Emmylu was the youngest of 3 children born to Clem and Lucy. Clement Dwayne was born 12 years earlier in 1924, and Shirley Laree was born 10 years earlier in 1926. All 3 children were born in the family house on the family farm. Emmylu graduated the 8th grade from Charles F. Tigard School in Tigard, Oregon, and went on to graduate from Tigard High School in 1954. This is the same high school from which Nathan graduated in 1978 and Rowena graduated in 1980. When Emmylu was growing up, she and her family attended the Tigard Christian Church. She attended the Billy Graham Crusade, his 12th ever, in Portland, Oregon in 1950 and was involved in the Youth for Christ organization. In 1952 or 1953, Emmylu's parents heard radio evangelist Herbert W. Armstrong, founder of the Radio Church of God, which changed its name to the Worldwide Church of God in 1976, and they joined the church. Emmylu remained unwaveringly loyal to the teachings of Armstrong until her death. During this entire time, Emmylu maintained a faithful regimen of daily morning Bible study and prayer. She was also a faithful Seventh-day Sabbath keeper, observed the 7 biblical feasts of Leviticus 23, and followed the biblical dietary laws of not eating unclean meats. After Emmylu graduated from Tigard High School, she spent a year at Portland State College, the future Portland State University, from which her son Nathan and her grandson Aaron would graduate in 1983 and 2020, respectively. In 1956, Emmylu transferred from Portland State College to Ambassador College in Pasadena, California, which was the Bible college founded by Herbert Armstrong, where she continued her studies until 1959. In 1958, at Ambassador College, she met Thomas Rodney Lawrence from Spokane and Seattle, Washington, and they were married on January 12, 1959. Each summer, the Lawrence family would go camping or backpacking for a week. Emmylu prepared all the food and packed nearly all of the camping gear for the family. Backpacking and camping remained a central love of Emmylu's life. Like her mother and father before her, she loved the mountains and was enthralled by mountain wildlife, especially wild birds, and was an expert wildflower identifier. She also loved to pick mountain huckleberries, a Blakney family tradition from her childhood, as well as wild mushroom hunting. Tom and Emmylu lived on the family farm from 1966 until mid-1993. While in Tigard, as if the proverbial plate of Emmylu's life was not full enough, she started a 32-year-long career working as a secretary for the Tigard School District to help supplement the family income. She eventually took a position at Tigard High School as the secretary to the Guidance or Counseling Office, a position she held until she retired in her early 60s. She chose a career with the school district because it gave her summers off, so she could do the needed work on the 8-acre family farm, which provided most of the food for the family throughout the year, as well as additional income from selling eggs and meat. Her school district also ensured that she could be home each day when her children were home. This was important to her since she viewed being first a dutiful wife, then a mother who was there for her children as a divine mission. Her greatest goal was to be the virtuous woman that the biblical book of Proverbs describes in chapter 31. This remained her chief aim and goal until the end of her life. While working at the school, Emmylu continued to maintain the books for the family landscaping business, as well as all the other countless never-ending chores and responsibilities around the farm. On the farm, she acted both as an expert in natural healing when any of her family members were sick, as well as a veterinarian for all of the sick animals on the farm. She lovingly tended to all of the sick and wounded people and animals that came her way. While on the farm, Emmylu's Thanksgiving dinners were legendary among our family. For years, 3 generations of our family members, including siblings, cousins, and grandparents, would gather at the family farm. Often there would be upwards of 30 people for these feasts. Emmylu always brought out her largest homegrown turkey, often a 30-pounder, for the occasion. After the Lawrences left the farm, they eventually settled in Woodburn, where they bought a house in 2000 and where Emmylu lived until she died. In their new home, she maintained a small vegetable garden, planted several fruit trees, and planted many flowers. Wild birds and flowers of all sorts always found a welcome home at Emmylu's house. While in Woodburn, Emmylu took up quilting. She joined a local group of passionate quilting ladies that met weekly. She covered her home and those of her children and grandchildren in vibrantly colored bed quilts, as well as quilted wall hangings, throws, placemats, and curtains comprised of vibrant and elaborate patterns that often featured bird, flower, and other outdoor themes. These quilted masterpieces are now treasured heirlooms by the members of 3 generations of Lawrences. Flowers and gardening were always a big part of Emmylu's life. Wherever she lived, Emmylu was definitely an incurable and inveterate plant lover of all kinds, both indoors and outdoors, as was Tom. She always had a vegetable garden. As she got older, the garden got smaller, but she still maintained one, nevertheless, as long as her health permitted, and it was always her pride and joy, which she was always quick to show visitors to her home. Together, Tom and Emmylu passed their love of plants and gardening on to their children and grandchildren. Nathan went on to become a professional arborist and tree service company owner, along with his son Jared. Other children and grandchildren carry on the family tradition as plant enthusiasts to this day, as well as hikers, backpackers, and mountain climbers. Now I'd like to read what I call Emmylu Lawrence's most notable qualities and achievements. Now I wrote this shortly before she died, and I read this to her while she was in the hospital before she was put on hospice, and she asked me to read this at her graveside memorial service. This is what I wrote. Emmylu was always busy doing things. Like the ever-ready bunny, she never stopped for a moment. She was incredibly industrious, possessed countless farm and home economic and other skills. She was a hard worker. She tirelessly and without complaint would attack any job and get it done, even if she had to do it alone or with little help from others. She always rose early and went to bed late and was busy until just before she retired for the night. Every day as soon as she arose, usually between 5 and 6 a.m., she would start her day with prayer and Bible study. She served her family, cooking all the meals from scratch, making all the lunches, washing the dishes, washing and folding all the clothes, keeping the house, tending the garden, preserving the food, cared for her husband and children, took care of the sick farm animals, and the list goes on and on. I have never known another woman who lived up to the attributes of the virtuous woman in Proverbs 31 more than her. I never heard her raise her voice in anger or utter a profane or vulgar word in my entire life. I never heard her complain. She was unwaveringly faithful to her biblically based religion as best she understood it until her death. When a job needed doing, she stepped up to the plate and went to work without murmuring or complaint. Whenever the family had a need, financial or otherwise, she did her best to meet it through diligence and hard work. When Tom and Emmylu had to leave the family farm due to unfortunate family situations, She went to work to earn the money for a down payment on a new house when she was in her early 60s. If the house needed painted inside or out, she did it almost single-handedly. She always tended the vegetable garden and preserved the food therefrom. She taught her children a work ethic, to find pleasure in work, in accomplishment, and to never be idle. I never heard her criticize her husband, my father, or speak a disparaging word about him. She had a perennially positive outlook and attitude on life, even to the point of almost being a bit Pollyannish. Her mental outlook was even keeled, and if she was ever discouraged or depressed, I cannot remember it. Emmylu was a tireless Wonder Woman who possessed a vast repertoire of skills, many of which were anachronistic for the era in which she lived. And she was knowledgeable in a wide range of areas and sported a diverse menu of interests. These include, she was a mother, wife, and grandmother who cared deeply for her husband and children. She was a top-notch executive secretary who could run an entire office. She was a bookkeeper for the family landscaping business, ran and managed a farm, including being a lay veterinarian, a meat butcher, vegetable, fruit, berry, flower, and flower gardener, a midwife to animals, animal husbandman to chickens, pigeons, geese, ducks, guinea fowls, songbirds, goats, sheep, cattle, dogs, and whatever other animals came our way. She had ornithological interests. She loved and cared for wild birds and always had a bird identification book and binoculars near the window. And she kept the bird feeders and suet feeders and bird baths full for the birds. She was a wildflower expert. She was a food preservationist, including canning, dehydrating, freezing, including canning meats, vegetables, fruits, juices, jams, and jellies. She was a soap maker, beekeeper, house painter, interior and exterior, gourmet cook, bread maker, butter maker, soap maker, granola maker, etc., etc., etc. She was a seamstress and a quilt maker. She was an outdoorsman, including a mountain climber, skier, backpacker, wilderness hiker and camper, swimmer, wild mushroom, and mountain blueberry picker. She was a flower arranger, painter of ceramics, and a photographer. And most importantly, she was a Bible student and lover of Yehovah Elohim, the God of the Bible. Mom will always live forever in our hearts and memories. The following is a voice recording of Emmylu Lawrence taken several years ago, and we found it on Sandy, my wife's cell phone, a message that my mom left for Sandy. There you can hear the vibrance and the joy and the bounciness and the life in her voice. Please enjoy.
Hi, Sandy. This is Mom. Dad, I didn't know when you were coming down, and I didn't want to put your salad dressing in the refrigerator because we're going to be gone for a little while. So if we go, I guess I'll leave it out, and if you haven't come, I'll put it back in the refrigerator. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.